Peace, peace, y'all. We are back with another Artivist Talk with Beth Bliss. I'm going to get her locked in right now. Peace, peace. Welcome, welcome.
Peace.
All right. Thank you. We'll give a few minutes for people to pop in on this lovely day. We got you. How are you feeling today?
I feel good. The sun is sunning today.
Ooh,
I took a nice
ooh.
walk this morning.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes, yes. This is a very, very special episode because, you are definitely one of the inspirations. We're going to go into a good amount of things. Thank you guys for joining. I see Lizzie in the chat. I see the A85. I see Undo Poetry Collection. Thank you guys for coming in. If you know anybody who should
Peace,
be here.
John. Peace, Adrian. Peace,
Yes.
Alignment Candles. Alignment Candles offers some beautiful, beautiful gifts and spiritual healing products. I met them, I believe, I went to Texas like a few years back and I met them at like a market. So thank you for tuning in. Shout out to Alignment Candles. Follow them.
Nice, nice. Well, we're going to get right into it, Beth. Our opening question is always around the theme of artivism. I know the word is a hybrid word of art and activism, and I know that the word was kind of prominent around the civil rights movement. Didn't hear it too much, but in recent times it has been coming back around, particularly in communities around the work that we do. And at Creative Expressions, we define artivism as art and activism, but our definition of activism is really just activating our organism to its highest potential so that we can overflow without burnout or anything into doing something that's greater than ourselves, affecting our environment and beyond. But we want to ask you our opening question: what is artivism to you, and how do you use it?
I love the creative expression definition, by the way. I feel like I definitely, like, that's the vibration I'm on. Like, we're very aligned in that way. But I guess my definition would be more like, how are you showing up for yourself and for your community? And how are you using your art form or medium to do that? It can be done in so many ways, and it has already been done so many ways. We have so many ancestors that, have paved the way for us to show up in our art and in our,
Mm-hmm.
do.
No, I love it. And you have a lot of different mediums, not just from poetry and singing, but you use other things such as archivism. I know is a big part. What are your mediums of your artivism, and how are they being utilized in this very, very unique day and time?
So I use written form, like writing
Mm-hmm.
is usually my outlet. It's always been my outlet since I was little. Singing and writing poetry kind of developed at a
Mm-hmm.
time at a very young age for me. Um, and then archivism was like, it was something new to me. Like I was in I was in my junior year or senior year of college when like I learned about that, like archiving was a thing, and that like it it's a thing of the people. It's not just like gate kept for like institutions and like stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they try to do. They try to like put our history on a pedestal and like make it inaccessible to us. And
Mm-hmm.
I was able to kind of pinpoint how like history and her story and their story, like that is that is in our essence, that is in our like day to day. Like archiving is kind of what we do. We have receipts, we do groceries, like all those little things are like part of archivism and tell a story about like how we live as a people and as a community. So every poem that we write, every song that we write is an archive. Every recording that we do is an archive, and that's something that I am kind of, that's what's showing up in my pedagogy as educator, how to like talk about it, because being an artist means that you're multiple things at once. And
Mm-hmm.
I know you talk about this all the time, like
Yes.
the concept of dimensionality.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that shows up in art and that shows up in
Facts.
community organizing, because every movement has its archives and has its relics and has the books and stuff that we study. There's so many different categories. So when you work at an archive or a library, the first thing that they teach you is how to process that information, how to categorize it. And it usually just ends up in a spreadsheet so that it can be on a database and help people do research and all those kinds of things. So yeah, that's kind of what it is in essence. But like the way I connect it to my art form is that when you like actually write it down or type it out, like that in itself becomes something that like you can always go back to.
Mm. You said something really, really important that I want you to expand on. You said beyond institutions or systemic structures, it's very important for us to archive. You even brought up something as simple as receipts from going to the store. I know whenever we do events, we keep a spreadsheet of our expenses. Why do you think people documenting their work, you know, a lot of those archives that you mentioned, me and you have talked about photographs, right? Just these events, and then they get overlooked, right? We are not the keepers or tellers of our stories. If you go back to ancient indigenous African tradition, I know I listen to folk tales, and these stories were the archives, right? These were the griots, these were these things. And it was huge, huge for such a long part of our history and history. And then all of a sudden, in more modern times, let's say the past couple hundred years, you don't really see people wanting to keep those things anymore. Grandmothers used to keep scrapbooks. You know, I'm old enough where we used to have scrapbooks and these items, or you would even see a flower kept, or even as far as people umbilical cords or things were kept. And why do you think that that diminished? And we stopped seeing so much people keeping these relics on their own, but yet the institutions have never stopped, right? You go to Smithsonian's and they got Jay Dilla's MPC over there. They understand these things. Where do you think the disconnect has happened between people valuing their archives and the things that they're creating?
So I think it's like a mix of two things. I think it's like we live in the era of digitization,
Mm.
so that itself creates problems within like the archival world, because it's like you have to keep updating your formats, and like with technology always advancing, like a lot of like moving or like changing from one format to another, and some
Mm.
people don't really put that labor in, or like that labor doesn't get funded. So that's like one kind of thing, like on the institutional size, that also like affects the individual, because it's like people just feel like since it's so accessible, or like it's easier to just like do something, or like do something so transactional, it's so fast, you don't even like
Mm.
it's just it's not important, I guess, or
Wow.
significant. But like being aware of it, that it is, and like it it's something to think about. And I think like that's something we have to like teach our future and like our newer generations, because it's like those principles aren't like being, I guess, taught. I definitely, like, I have my mom's scrapbooks that like she kept from like, you know, like my first haircut or like whatever.
Wow.
Like I've always kind of seen it, and I definitely know like of that tradition. And it's like even when we think of something so like recipes, people don't really keep recipes no more. Everything is just, you can search that up on the internet. But it's like we need those, I guess, those artifacts, because that's what they are. Like having your grandma's old recipe book, like,
Yeah.
doesn't get erased.
Mm. That reminds me of the Bob Marley quote where it says, "In this great future, you can't forget your past." And I feel a lot of things are being able to be gotten away with in this era because people have a disconnect from their past. They don't have access to these things to realize life is secular, meaning cycle based. So there are elements, no matter how advanced we get in technology, that history repeats itself. I remember during the COVID era, they went back to, I think it was bird flu or something in the 50s, where there was an era, or even earlier, I think the 20s it might have been, where everyone was wearing masks and asked to do these things, these tactics that were brought upon the people back then. Also, I didn't even know during things like in World War II, when we went to Germany, there was the red triangle
Mm-hmm.
people that weren't additionally just the Jewish people that had the Star of David's on them. When I learned this in school, that was told to me, half of the story was let out. I didn't know that the people being brought into the concentration camps are also disabled, mentally ill,
Mm-hmm.
air quotes on this, and until we went to, unfortunately, these camps, you know what I mean? Then I realized, wow, this happened this way. These people were oppressed, and I thought I knew a story because only a half truth was presented to me. So I want to thank you for pointing out that. The other side of the coin is, art being used as entertainment, right? I know a lot of musicians, artists, I know you mentioned your poetry and your singing. How did you get into it, and how did it evolve beyond entertainment? I think a lot of us, we start music or writing or rapping, whatever form of creative expression we have, through various reasons, right? And some people that I know, they've been making music 20 years and they're still trying to sell tickets at an open mic. They want to look at, oh, what's the hottest songs that I'm going to do a melody of, or great musicians that are playing wedding bands and playing top 50. And they're just like, hey, I want to make people dance and this and this. And I see a lot of artists now being utilized to be strictly entertainment versus some of the education and these other things. I want you to talk about your relationship to being an artist as well, and how that journey started for you and how it has evolved over the years as you continue doing something that you started when you were a child.
Um, so I feel like growing up, I I, I don't know, like I kind of was fed that same construct of like entertainment, celebrity culture, like that kind of was like a huge part of my childhood, and I always was like inspired by like these celebrities that like in reality go through hard things, because it's like being an artist is
Yeah.
not easy, especially under these systems that exploit us and make us feel like we have to be competitive or like bash other people or whatever. um I feel like we lose ourselves when we strictly do or like showcase our work for that lens of like entertainment. we lose
Mm.
we lose parts of ourselves, and like we devalue our work. um I strive to like work closely with these people that organize these events for artists, and we've co-collaborated on events together to hold space for artists and for community. So I feel like that's the work that people may not be used to. um and it's something that you kind of grow into. Like I didn't start organizing until like the pandemic. i
Wow.
didn't I didn't go to my first protest, or like, and you usually start off by like mobilizing
Mm.
first. There's a difference between mobilizing and organizing. So showing up at a random event because you felt like it, or like doing something out of like the goodness of your heart, like that's not really organizing. Organizing is like being consistent in the work that you do, and what's your real intentions. I feel like music has always been music and poetry has like always been this way that I like coped with my emotions and pain, honestly. um
Likewise.
there are times where it's like you do use your art form as escapism, but then you also use it as a action of liberation. You free yourself, you free your mind, you free your spirit, you have this deep conversation, and you get to know yourself better as an artist.
that is bringing me to another point. You are, you know, a younger artist, right? And you choose to hold space a lot. You and I have collaborated on multiple events, producing these events, holding space for other artists. There are a lot of artists that are significantly older than you and have been doing art for a long time, but they may not end up in the organizing aspect. They're usually waiting for a venue, a space, another person to set it up, to be like, hey, I'm gonna person X books out the venue. Usually, you know, I'm just going to run a typical thing. If all of you guys know a lot of the open mic and showcase scene, it's premised around two things usually: selling tickets and selling food and or alcohol or capitalism, right? So I'm just going to walk people through an example of a very common event. Now, this event may say, hey, we're doing this for blank, 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 meaning there might be a cause in it, but when you take it down to nuts and bolts, it's usually a venue space that is primarily a bar venue that is under the premise of we're going to sell you drinks and, you know, sometimes other substances like pre-rolls, which I have nothing against, or things like that. We're going to charge you a cover at the door, meaning anywhere from $5 to $25. We're going to create a list, aka either an open mic forum, or we're going to get 5 acts to do a 30-minute set. And the premise is that all these acts bring out a couple people, they get enough people to pay, they get enough people to buy set items, food, drink, whatever there is. There might be a theme, there might not be. But this tends to be a lot of the dominant in the DIY scene. You know, you and I have coordinated different events. What do you think keeps people following this construct? And they may even think that, oh, I am thinking outside of the box, because they might not be a 9-to-5er, but they're still following this very, very common template, if you will, right? And how did you, as a young artist, just get beyond that and think of doing something? You know, you're somebody I call because I understand I don't have to explain that to you. We vibe on that. But why do you think so many people get caught in this, what I'm going to just refer to as a cookie cutter model of displaying art, going to venues, and they have the same resources you and I have. We've done this with little to no money, right? But what do you think holds people back from thinking outside of the box, or keeps them doing this very, very formulaic method of artistic expression within our community?
I feel like the answer is different for everyone, but I feel like it boils down to convenience and like seeking something outside of yourself. Like a lot of people tend to, and I probably may have felt similarly at certain points of like, I guess,
Same.
my journey. Like you you hope to like get something more out of what it actually is. And
Mm.
yeah, I I feel like organizing has to start at a very like organic level, and like you can, you know, you can do your research and try to find those spaces or make those relationships, but that takes time. It doesn't happen
Yes.
like you know. um so yeah, I feel like a lot of people go to these spaces because they're looking for some form of healing, but like
Yes.
we we are like we have to do that work. No one else is going to do that work for you. No space is going to do that for you. I was speaking to one of my like longtime friends, and they said you can't heal something you hate. And I was like yo, like a lot
Woo!
try to like do that, like they're avoiding the problem, or they're avoiding like these feelings that either stem from trauma or like something really deep, and they just kind of either project it onto other people, or they just like carry it with them and then go to these places and try to let it go.
Mhm.
Really.
Wow. Yeah, yeah, that is so true. And I'm connecting that to trauma bonds, right? Like a lot of us get together and we organize organize, right? To like to run away from the world, right? Like, hey, let's get up and let's just, you know, nothing wrong with it. But a lot of it is we get up to get high, we get up to run. But sometimes I know you and I have done it on the regular. We get up to like question each other. We get up to be like, yo, why are we really doing this? We call out each other on certain behaviors, right? And it's the same time and energy, to be honest, right? We didn't take any more, we didn't have to like read a deep Bell Hooks book or anything. We just had to analyze our own behaviors amongst each other and have to have hard to have conversations. Because I remember a lot of times, you know, I would get up with people and they would just be, yo, bro, I'm not trying to hear any of that. Just turn on the beats, man. You know what I mean? Or, yo, let's just go hit this show. Or, yo, let's get another one, man. Just roll up another one. And then I remember getting tired of running, you know. I've heard it being said around escapism that, you know, when your demons are coming after you, don't run from them, stop and turn around, you know. And that's where a lot of the work lies. I want you to kind of go a little bit deeper on escapism, if you will, because I know this time, especially if, you know, we all got a lot on our plates in New York City, right? People have their jobs, people have family, people have school, all these things on their plate. So then they're just like, I just want a moment where I could just get away from this all, you know? So I empathize with it, but it doesn't really solve anything, right? Running from these problems, you hide from the monster doesn't go away. It's just like waiting for you. And then it happens. So I want you to kind of just talk about escapism and how you're able to face some of the issues, you know, growing up in Brooklyn. You know, I know you mentioned that, you know, your mom had you very young and these kind of things. You had a lot of things, Beth, and not to throw out your info in there, but you've gone through a lot of things that a lot of other people who've been through similar things can choose to run, can choose to escape, can choose to hide. I personally have observed you over these past couple of years face your challenges, whether that be with like going back to school or getting a master's, doing this. What gives you the strength to think beyond the escapism and make different choices that are against the norm, you know? So riff off of that however you choose.
I feel like we learn from a really young age how to escape. And it's like now, like I'm currently working at a school. I work with middle schoolers right now. Like I see them every day trying to escape, like whether it be from the DOE, from all these social constructs, like they're trying to escape, and the ways that they're escaping is just like completely detrimental to their health and their well-being. And that's not even talking about like what they go through at home. Like that's just what I see on the surface. It, and I feel like there's ways too that like I guess intellectual people even escape through like philosophy or these theories, or like, you know, through authors' works that like, you know, are important to study and like, you know, definitely have deep conversations, discussions, receive information, receive wisdom from those bodies of work. But the real work does happen with yourself and the relationship that you have with yourself. And we've kind of talked about this before, that like everyone is an artist. Nature is
Yes.
original, like art. You go outside, the sun is shining, that's art. Like the
Facts.
birds, that's music. Like it's, I feel like there's just a lot of like fallacies and lies that are like easy to like get yourself caught into. And we have to like do our best to resist those like those easy forms of like tuning out.
1,000%. That's going to bring me to the next point that I would love to gain your perspective on. A lot of fear-based thinking, we can do great things out of a fear-based mindset, right? For example, hand raised here, I used to work out until I got injured. I used to write through songs a day. I used to do things that I thought were positive, right? From a very, very fear-based place. It was only until I realized I wasn't getting the results. I was like, how come I'm writing 4 songs a day? How come I'm going exercising every day? how come I'm alkaline, vegan, this, and I'm still suffering this deep, deep sense of emotional pain and suffering. You know, you and I talk about it too, whether that's anxiety, depression, sadness, right? And somehow, right, I laugh at myself at this, right? We think that we could like write it away, right? Sing it away, work it out away. But, and I know you've learned this work from the farm, you know what I mean? And a lot of what you have done. So what do you think is a way that people can really face their shit, you know, just to say it honestly, you know, and how can we not try to run and hide through positive things, right? I think that escapism, sometimes we think of the drugs or this and that or the negative things, but all these positive things, I've seen people once again sing themselves to the point they blow out their vocal cords, work out till they tear their Achilles, you know. What do you think is a reason or maybe a solution for people to actually engage in stillness and face these things beyond escapisms that may even seem quote unquote healthy or positive?
Um, for people that don't know, I was a youth intern at the Hattie Carthen Farmers Market in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, which is a Black-owned space that teaches youth sovereignty and the importance of land stewardship, business, and that kind of work helped me really see myself as just like as a part of like this bigger ecosystem. So I feel like once you can identify, like if you're like always on go, if you're like trying to grind, if you're always trying to get money, if you're always trying to do something, you're not grounded and you're not present. So if you're not grounded and you're not present, you're not like, you're just not in your right, like, I guess, you're just not well.
Yeah.
I guess, like,
Yeah.
you're just not like spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, like you're like something is always going to affect the other. And like finding your balance as a person, like that is in itself also part of the work. So like visualizing your habits and like knowing what you're that yeah. I'm so sorry, Divine. I totally forgot to call you. If you see this later, she's calling me right now. Anyways.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. Yeah. No, Beth, that's very real. And I feel for artists of all walks of life, that shift is happening right now. And until we stop and realize that there's more to life, that your existence, once again, this is something you and I talk about a lot, that your existence as a being, as a live energy is enough, right? And identity is a big thing. I know I've gotten into a lot of, I would say, conflict around this because I say that we are greater than the things we do, whether that's identifying as like a person of color or this or that. And then, you know, I just have to believe that we're greater. And I'm gonna say it here because it's Beth Bliss. I gotta go in there. You know, I think that you as a woman, you are an all-powerful being. You are not lesser than, and I'm never gonna think of you as lesser than, or anyone because they might be black or a woman or this. And I think that we look at this thing through the lens of systemic oppression, right? It's because in their systems we might be less than, and then we internalize this inferiority complex, and then we go, oh yeah, well, we weren't this, and we demand something outside of ourselves to make it better for us instead of our, as hippie as it may sound, to love ourselves beyond. You know, you have one of songs I love, loving myself, you know. And this self-love is real. And yeah, how do you feel that, like, you know, it's easy to wave the flag of the oppression Olympics. Let me just call it like that, you know, that we are held down by the system, the man, the white folks, and all of this. And sometimes when people say, nah, like, you know, when I say, nah, you're not, you are the greatest. You know, I love E Major. He had one of the great things that deciphered is, I am the greatest. You know, I'm not going to think that you are held down, because what benefit does that have to say? That just means that I'm aligned with a system that says women or X, Y, and Z are less than that. What do you think about that self-love, and moving beyond looking at ourselves through the lens of oppression and the lens of the things that disempower us, you know? And are we going to get freedom through these systems? People are quickly demanding our governments, our systems that were built in a certain way. They're demanding their reform instead of us reforming ourselves. I know I kind of went in a little bit on that, but I want you to just reflect on that and share what your thoughts are on this, because I know it's huge and I can't say this stuff to everybody, you know?
Word, like, I remember I sent you this podcast that Farmer Yon did, and she said that liberation is a continuous fight. It's like almost never ending.
Ooh.
So, and then she also said, like, there's a difference between reform and transformation, and transformation is really where, like, the crux of like how we get to where we want to be as a collective from the bottom up and not top down. So at the grassroots level, are we really taking the time, or even making the time to like get to know our community? Are we are we taking the time to like know which are the local businesses that, you know, if you want to get a gift for somebody, if you want to do a practice of like consumerism, are you doing it in the best way, or in an alternative way? A lot of, we're in the influencer and like content creation era.
Yeah.
And it's like, are you doing that, or using your platform to really uplift your like peoples, or are you just doing it to just show face? And, you know, I think like a lot of it has to do with that same like self-love. We self-love is a constant practice too, like that's like just like liberation. So it's, you know, it's easy to like think and get caught up in that like scarcity mindset, where it's like you don't have enough, or you're not worthy, or you're not, you know, you're just
Yes.
because the systems are telling us that that's what we're getting fed.
Yeah. Yeah. You touched into something really great that I'd love for you to expand upon, right? We're being fed a narrative, right? Even if it's an artist, burnout is real, right? We're fed this hustle, 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 go out to events all the time, shit out a bunch of songs, put out all this. You know, if you're a musician, hey, put these things out on all platforms, on Spotify. And honestly, they're just capitalist constructs. But because we're using art, and we might be saying a message in the song, we're still being asked to take our life force and interject it into these systems that literally exploit us, right? I was in a group of a 28-day music challenge, right? And it was all about, hey, we want to everybody go do 28. And then they were like, hey, let's put a Spotify playlist. And then I was like, yo, guys, why don't we use Bandcamp? Because they're at least a little bit more artist centric. You can name your own price. Every Friday, the money goes toward the artist. But I was told by the group, like, hey, Spotify gets more views. This gets more this. And these were good people making what I would call purpose-driven art. You know, they weren't They weren't talking about like music that oppresses us, but yet there was still this desire to be seen, to be heard, to be validated by these things, whether they're views, the matrix terms of success. How do you think we can transcend those? And I do my best. Like, you know, I wasn't feeling the best today, and I was like, Beth, I'm just gonna stay still until 3, and then come to this with you, and I'm gonna just stop, you know. And I think for a lot of people, it's hard to stop because we feel hurt. We feel like the world's gonna crumble on our feet. We feel like we're not gonna make it. And we feel that if we don't do these things that we are told to do, whether that's go to school and get a degree or do an open mic or show every weekend, somehow we're gonna just like be abandoned by the divine and by source. You know what I mean? I think this is huge, and I've seen you make shifts and change. But what do you think about this? Just getting off of the wheel like that, like the gerbil on the wheel. You know what I mean? How do we escape the escapisms, or how do we stop seeking validation, or how do you do this in your practice and still feel like you are enough beyond what you create and what you do and organizing and all the things that you do, because you do a lot.
I don't know. I feel like part of it is just like telling yourself to not give a fuck about those things anymore, and
uh
that takes time. But it's like you you, like these spaces, these places, they don't give a fuck about you. They only want your. So it's like
uh
the sooner that you kind of internalize that, like the you can make better decisions. Like I did an open mic, what was it, like last week, and I haven't taken the time to like cut down all that content and like post it and do all that. I post whatever I feel like it. Like
yes.
if you know me, I'm posting because I'm promoting somebody else probably more than I promote myself. And like I just I don't know, I feel like some people we do get caught up in like those agendas of like, okay, what's in it for me, but it's like there's more than just that. There's more than just what you can gain out of putting your stuff out there. But you also have to be kind of strategic in like how you're doing it.
Yeah. No, I agree. This is why I've been using these talks. This talk caught momentum. I just started with one talk right around the time we did the mixer. And then I was like, you know what? The most important thing for me to release is sharing people's stories, almost like archiving, right? And I used to say, yo, I need to have these cameras set up, right? I used to say, I need this, I need that, right? I did 2 seasons of podcasting that got little to no views, right? And then I was like, no, you know what? I'm just going to record it on the gram, take the video from the gram, put it on YouTube. And, you know, your reel alone has gotten more attention and more things than so many things I've done in the past. And I realized I let go and I started to do things that serve. And if you serve community and you are part of that community, you and yourself will receive personal benefits. And it takes a village. There's this hyper individualistic state we're living in right now. It's on the me. It's I have to go. It's the me over we, right? It's this very, very deep conditioning that I have to, and I use the air quotes, make it. And
mm-hmm.
I've always said, what the fuck is making it? You made it. You're alive. You're here. Like my friend goes, oh, this is another one of the Y songs you're not gonna put out. And I said, well, it came out of the speakers,
Mm-hmm.
so it's out. And I said that on a literal sense, but there was this energy of like, nah, that's not it. It's only out when it's on all platforms and when it's on this. And like, this stuff is only very, very new in our existence. But how come all these ways that were done within our history, our archives, as you say, you know, that we're way beyond that, right? Even as recent as 60 whatever years ago, whether it was Jimi Hendrix or that, they would come across town with a guitar on their back and sing songs in the street, right? And these things are what allowed the world to find out about music and art, right? Why do you think there's such a focus on hyper individualism and this idea of I have to make it and everything is being pushed through these constructs and these systems. I think actually more than ever right now, you know, and it's real deep, and it's very difficult to move against what is the norm. If you don't want to follow this or beg for likes and beg for views and do this thing, you're almost a little bit of a black sheep in this, you know? But how do we come together and find camaraderie? I know you and I have done it, and which is why I'm building up the roster and the community is hard. But how do you navigate this as an individual who has your own goals and your own version of what success is, you know? So how are
I
you
feel
navigating this?
a lot of it is fear-based, but the remedy for that is having a better understanding of yourself, plus like the intersectionality of it. Like Audre Lorde said, there's no such thing as a single issue. And that is like, those are like kind of words that I live by, because it's like your decisions have an effect on other people. What you choose to put in your body has an effect on the people around you. Like our parents have had a huge impact on like who we are, like your where you come from, your environment. Like that is what is like, I don't want to say controlling, like controlling your perspective, but like it's deeply influencing like how you function, whether as an artist or just like as a person working a 9 to 5, like and as an organizer too. Like we're constantly like head to head with those like forces and those like thoughts, that conditioning. So like the only kind of way to move past it is to like go inward.
Whew.
Yeah.
Yeah. I I really want to echo that statement of what you said. And for anybody's tuning in, thank you. You got to look in, guys. Look in, and we'll never be without. And that internal introspection is where you're going to see if something is fear-based or love-based. What you do, this is why I do the why, has a lot to do. It's really why you do it. You could be singing a song because you feel good and you're just expressing yourself, or you could be singing a song because you're scared that you suck, or you could be in fear mode that my voice is terrible, my art is trash, this is it. And if you're creating something from a fear-based place, you are amplifying the fear within you. And this is how people, you know, I've had to rewrite contracts for thousands of dollars and turn away gigs because there's a fear in me. Oh man, I can't turn this gig away for thousands of dollars. I'm going to end up homeless on the street. And even that, I had to say, if I'm thinking that, I am afraid. And I'm coming from a deep fear-based place. And I have to have inner strength and make a dialogue within me that says, I can say no to these things. And I've had to get enough courage to challenge points of views. When anybody hits me up, like I was talking about jazz, you know what I mean? And some people think jazz is real book. Jazz is what's taught in school. Mm-hmm. Jazz is a black art form that was created as an offset and an addition to R&B, gospel, and blues that is, by its nature, is fighting the tool of oppression. But yet you have all these people that have created a narrative that becomes dominant. Hip hop was created as an interdisciplinary black art form in the 70s that was based by youth as a evolutionary, revolutionary culture. But we use these same words, and these systems have distorted the original meaning of them. And then people take them on because they're based in a foundation of truth, but they remove the original origin of them. And they are not, until you look in the archives, right? Until I started watching videos from the 20s and being like, wow, these jazz musicians were in living rooms. They were playing in brothels. They didn't go to jazz school. They didn't go to an institution to learn this. But the institutions took what was done in these communities, ripped out a part of it, packaged it, and sold it to people. And they're doing the same thing with hip hop right now. So I think this goes right back to archivism, Beth, about what you said. We have to look at the people who are telling the stories. And only when I started looking back at like Minton's and Miles Davis' autobiography, which was archives from the 40s, where he was in Juilliard going to school, and he left Juilliard to go play in black clubs in Harlem because he said Juilliard could never give him the education that was done in these small black venues. And yet he gets used and his music gets used by institutions. And in his own story, he left the institutions to seek knowledge from the community. And, you know, he went in there. How do you think institutions have rewritten the narrative, and how can we take back hold of that narrative and come back to the true definition, right? Because whether jazz, whether hip hop, you name it, the Renaissance, these stories are literally altered. And then we are given the microwave cookie cutter version of it, and we are removed from the original stories, which I think have to be told by the people who live them, you know? So what's your take on it as someone who has been on both sides of the coin, right? You have done work within certain structures, you have been with nonprofits and that, and you've also organized independently. What's the balance? You know, we don't hate on anybody here, but I think there has to be a real awakening in us realizing what the real foundation is, you know, to move beyond some of these thought patterns. So what's your take on these things?
I mean, like a lot of what you just kind of spoke upon are based of like hierarchical. There are these hierarchical systems where it's like you have to go to somebody's supervisor, somebody's higher up to like actually, I guess, get listened to, or like if you have an idea, like you have to present those ideas to someone else who is of authority and like has some kind of like upper hand than you. And we don't have to do that. We can literally go like to each other, link up in a coffee shop, in a, hopefully it's like, you know, a business that is practicing sustainable like methods, or like, you know, like you can build with someone, and having an exchange with someone one-on-one is just as valuable as getting a platform by these institutions to like talk on a panel or do whatever they do. A lot of it is just like band-aiding the problem. And, you know, like I really respect like the educators and the people who are working on the ground to like build these curriculums, or like they're dedicating time and energy and sometimes funds or resources to actually make curriculum that has truth in it, or is built and founded on truth. And, you know, that takes a lot of decolonizing what we're forced to do, because that's what it is. We're forced to like
Yes.
go to school, get a job, like that's just what it is. So it's like, what aren't you being forced to do that you can do? What yeah.
Yeah. You tapped on something real deep, Beth. It's like we almost feel, or we're conditioned or taught, that there's no other way out except through them, right? Through their systems, through giving up our sovereignty to something, institution, person that knows better for us, right? All-knowing being. And if you know what that is, like to me, that's what God is. This means that people are looking at these things, and whether that's you think another person is there, but I think it comes down to trust. Another one of the themes in a lot of your songs, you know, like I remember when we went to Astoria Park and we were just playing music with the leaves and the sticks. And that was such a powerful session to me, because I just remember hearing the water moving and like not being tuned into that before. And I was like, how many other things are right around me that I'm not noticing, that are very, very, very beautiful and empowering, right? And what do you have to say to people who they just don't think they could get out of these jobs. They don't think they could get out of these structures. They think they have to be pimped by Spotify or this. They think they have to turn into booze peddlers at their venue. Like, I don't want to say advice, but how can we personify that there's another way? Because there is, and it's actually what they say when you want to hide something from somebody, put it right under their nose, you know?
I mean, like letting go of those entities that are like trying to silence us is not easy, but that's like where it starts. So it's like step one is like identifying like, okay, this 9 to 5 is sucking my soul and like is not helping me. And it like it may be like helping me get by and like live paycheck to paycheck because you know everything is just crazy right now. But like what are the like alternatives? Like, you know, and like it comes down to like when you do have that burnout, it's hard to see anything else. Like you're just looking from that lens. But it's like identifying that these structures are not serving us. They were put in place to exploit us. Like that in itself, it's like that's step one. But then it's like next step is like, who are you and like what are you trying to do with what you have? Because like activists and organizers in the past, they didn't have they got by and did what they had to do like with each other and built that camaraderie. So it's like you have to change that perspective. So like looking back to that like scarcity versus abundance mindset, like you have to like see what you actually have around you and who's actually down to like support you. And you know, again, it doesn't happen in a day. Like that takes time.
Yes. No, that's very, very real, Beth. I want to give you some time to, you know, express anything that's been on your heart and on your spirit. I know you got a lot going on. You are continuously evolving. I'm glad to walk the path with you. And, you know, I think one thing that's good about what we've done is we bring these challenges to the forefront of our work, right? We address them and we say, well, how can we make sure somebody eats at the venue? How can we make sure that somebody's respected? You know, how do we facilitate to, if there's a person who might feel insecure musically, that they can still make their way to the bandstand, right? You know what I mean? I know this is huge in what I do, but I know it's so I honestly can say I feel a lot of pain sometimes because I just see that a lot of people don't see it in themselves. They don't see the value in themselves. They see their work as the value. And I just want people to know that you are greater than your output. You know, if we are identifying with our output, with our songs, with whatever it is, the money we make, we are literally removing ourselves from our own power. And it's very serious to me because I spent, you know, half of my life doing that. I don't want to act like I was this person who was not. It's only now that I'm like, okay, Beth, I'm going to take care of myself before this. I'm going to still show up to you for this hour and I'm going to still make my commitment. But yo, I can't, this is all I have the ability to do right now. I can only do this, right? How can we let go, right? Because abundance is a natural state of being. It's not something that has to be obtained, right? But capitalism teaches us that you have to obtain riches, obtain financial freedom, obtain all these things from some external source, which then gets us to look for views, look for likes, look for shows, look for followers, look for people at our events, right? And then we create these metrics that then value ourselves, right? And, you know, I always loved how metrics is very close to matrix, right? You know, there are all these things that are huge, huge, huge in holding us back. And I think that they get overlooked because we as people are not seeing the intrinsic value that you have and abundance as your natural state of being. You know, is there anything that you've done or can speak on to help unpack that? or allow people to be led back to themselves and to know that their intrinsic value is not based in scarcity and scarcity mindset, you know, that you are divine, you are source energy, you are that as you are right now. How do you feel that? You know, I'm doing my best to embody that energy, but how can one, you know, keep amongst all the madness and the conditioning, keep your eye on that real truth that you are enough, right? As cliche as it sounds.
It's definitely like part of like a daily meditation and like unlearning of like you're supposed to be something other than yourself. I feel like what definitely helped me was like getting the privilege to like work with the earth and like understanding that like everything that we do is a reflection of that. I would encourage everyone to get in tune with their community gardens, because agriculture is it's a huge part of like how we live and function. And that has been one of the most transformational like ways to tap in with your divine and with yourself. So that's what I have. Anyone to pull up to Hattie Carthen, they have their cycles events on the calendar. So just stay tuned.
Yes, Beth, this is incredible. And I want to encourage people to add on to what you said, clean your house. Like walk and take a breath and as I know it might sound hippie-ish, but yo, look at a tree, hug a tree, notice the birds, notice the sky, notice the things that would exist without this air quote technology, and pay deep attention to them because nature is the ultimate artist. Beth, you know, this is Artivist Talk, so I want to hold space for you if you want to express a poem, a form of expression, or even toss some words that I'm going to put together. This was a very needed conversation. I know I needed to be reinforced with all of the amazing things you said. I'm honored to be able to work with you and learn from you. And the other thing, guys, please drop that ego. Just know that you can learn from everyone and every person in every moment. Like you can see a bird sitting on your stoop or just doing something, and that bird, the way that it moves, can carry and does carry a huge life lesson. And trust, it's not always on a podcast. It's not always on a YouTube in this. As much as we're doing this, we are hoping that people go into themselves. I know Beth and I practice this a lot, and we talk about this a lot in our work. But Beth, in case you want to share a poem, song, or any artistic expression at this moment, I want to hold space for you. If you don't, that's okay. You can throw a couple words, and I'm going to ask anybody in the chat if they want to throw words. We're going to end with the music.
Study the but know that you're great. You're never late. Who grew the food? Who ever be on speed, but never sleep. Tend to neglect the weeds. Not make room for the space inside. They want to conquer, divide. When we breathe, we know we talk a lot. But when we breathe, we know we're alive. Oh, not just here to survive. I'm here to thrive. I do my best. I give it tries. Mm. I the lives that I loved died, but mm,
Yeah, I had a moment. I let it go in. I got the potent. It's just a moment. It's like an ocean that's getting frozen. I've been speaking, but not a spokesman. I put it together. If I'm broken, I've been loving. I've been hoping. Fuck the mic. I'm just open. I let it go in. And I don't need no views. I just need to see myself and pay my dues. I could give them my socks, can't trade my shoes. I could do what I do. I could live how I love. And I don't need to get a budget if they show me love. But I show myself that I don't need money like aristocrats. The oligarchs are back. They try to tell you you're oppressed if you're a woman or black. But I can't adhere to that. Because I think that everybody's loved. And if I align to things that put me down, I know that hatred only comes back around. I got no hate. I got no room for that. I take myself on a date. Go ahead, Beth.
just background noise. When we breathe, when we sing, we I got the sunshine, even on the dark day.
Yes, we are here with the amazing Beth Bliss. I want to say thank you and pass the mic again for if there's any last words. If anybody has a final question, please throw it up in the chat. I want to say thank you. Wow, these things feel like 5 minutes, man. They go so fast. And I'm very, very honored for all the work you do. I'm honored to be able to learn from you and to reinforce that fearlessness, to get out of that scarcity, and then live with love and know that we are here and we've arrived and we do not need anything else to validate us. Couple key points in this conversation. You are great and you are more than what you create. You do not need anything to validate your work. You do not need to paint a picture, sing a song, any of that. You are great by the natural form of your existence. And if you can create from that space that you are divine, created by the creator to create, that nothing has to be done, you will create things from a space of joy, love, and abundance. Liz says, Beth, love you. You are amazing. That's it. You're reminding.
First of all, Liz, without you, there would be no Artivist Talk. So let's keep it 100 with that.
Yeah. This takes a village, guys. This takes a village. And the only way we do this is together and we help amplify each other's voices. We're here to learn. We're here to grow. Beth, any information on where people can get in touch with you? Any announcements you want to make before we close it out? I just want to say how honored I am for you to take some time on this lovely day to reinforce some things I know I needed to hear.
Just gratitude and like what? It's kind of 50 outside today. Go outside. I understand. If you didn't even watch my live, I am outside. And thank you to the people that did much love. Yeah.
Well, there you have it. Another Artivist Talk done. This one is history for the books and herstory. So we are here. Remember, y'all, look inside of yourself. If you go in, you will never be without. All it takes is the power of one. Go look at the trees. Go look at the birds. Go outside and take a breath. Stare at the sun. Look at the clouds. And know that the answers are always forever will always be within you. You do not have to take anything outside to validate your work. You do not need applause. You do not need those things. Those things could be a beautiful bonus, but trust that you are valid. And if we could leave anything out of this conversation, it would be to trust in yourself, love yourself, and pour into yourself till that overflows. Archive your work. Do what you got to do. Be an archivist. Do what you got to do. Collaborate with people and be willing to be malleable and have your views and thoughts changed, and empower yourself by working within community. A big thing Beth said was organizing, thinking beyond the structures, avoiding burnout, tapping into your higher divine self, and tuning in with nature. So volunteer at that local community garden, or just walk down the park and put your hands in the dirt and take off your shoes and then get it in there, and you'd be surprised what information is lying right there in front of you that's accessible to everyone. And it doesn't take $1, it doesn't take a Wi-Fi connection, it doesn't take a recording session, it doesn't take any of that. And just know that your ancestors are with you with divine guidance and love. We are signing out for this Artivist Talk.
Ashe.
That's Beth Bliss right here. Ashe. Peace, peace.